Hi there, I'm Janelle Yusufor, Vice President of Partner Marketing for Control4, a Snap AV company. Welcome to the last day of KBIS Virtual. I hope you've all been loving the show so far. I know I have. Control4 provides custom, easy, professionally installed smart home systems that bring your projects to life. We're honored to be ending the show by sponsoring this KBIS NeXTStage conversation. I'm thrilled to present Design Eye, close up with Bobby Berk here on the KBIS NeXTStage. Bobby is a globally famous interior designer, reality television star, and author, best known as the design guru on Netflix's Queer Eye. Interviewing Bobby today is a friend of his and definitely a friend of the design industry, Kelli Ellis. Kelli is an internationally recognized designer and speaker, and in her current role, she's the Vice President of Global Industry Relations at Renati. I'm a big fan of both Bobby Berk and Kelli Ellis, and I know this is going to be an inspiring, fascinating conversation with two of the brightest stars in the industry today. Bobby, Kelli, have a great chat.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to KBIS Virtual 2021, and thank you for the great message from our sponsor, Control4, of course. As she said, I'm Kelli Ellis, VP of Global Industry Relations for Renati, and most of you probably know me from HGTV or Design Network, but that's just nothing compared to my very dear friend. I'm so excited to see here virtually, if not in person very soon, Bobby Berk. So welcome to Design Eye, up close with my good buddy. And as we watch the show, many of you know Bobby's journey and have grown to love him as much as I do. I'm so excited that everybody knows you just by Bobby now. And I mean, really, come on, Bobby. But before we get started, just a quick housekeeping note before we get started. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there's a chat function and a Q&A function. So if you have a question and you want us to answer it at the end, if we have time and we're not gabbing this entire time as we can do, we'll be sure to get to some of your questions and hopefully some of the answers as well. So let's get started. Bobby!
Hi, good morning or good afternoon to everyone on the East Coast.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's so nice to see you. So where are you in this world? I feel like it's a game. Where in the world are you?
I'm actually back home in LA. I've been filming in Canada the last month, and I just got back in from Canada at like 1 o'clock in the morning last night.
So.
So.
You look great. Nice to see
Why
you.
awake 5 a.m. East Coast time.
Of course. Well, I know everybody's super excited to see what you're working on, and we won't ask you to tell us anything that you can't tell us, but we do have a few questions. You can? Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm the new host for Blown Away on Netflix, the glassblowing competition. I was a guest judge for season 2, which just came out about 2 weeks ago, and it's been top 10 on Netflix globally for the last week or two. And now they've brought me in to actually host the new holiday season. So I'll be the host on every episode now. Yeah.
I love that. And so many of us love the show. You know, we are consumers between your show and Blown Away. We're going back and forth, you know, and both are so entertaining and amazing. And I love that you say exactly what we're all thinking. So what an exciting new gig. I can't wait to see that.
Thank you. It's fun. It's funny. I remember it came out, the first season came out as we were filming season 5 of Queer Eye. And I saw it come up on my queue, and I literally said to myself, a glassblowing competition? My God, we've run out of ideas. But it started auto-playing as it does on Netflix, and I got hooked on it. I was like, oh my God, this is so good. If you love design stuff and you love competition and art, it's a really great show. Really great show.
Well, congrats on that. We're so happy to have you. We're actually in the same time zone for once. I'm usually in Barcelona and you're here, and we're here together, and now we just need to get face to face. But before we do, let's get into these questions, because I know people want to know a little bit more. This is kind of behind the scenes and the stuff that you and I would share over a glass of wine, and let's just share it with everyone else. Yeah,
let's do it. I know I've seen your daughter more than I've seen you.
I know, but I love that too. It's just like sharing a little piece, right? All right, so I know that a lot of people don't know this, and we want to know, you know, these are not quick journeys, and they always seem like they're quick journeys, right? Like they happened overnight and boom, and you're like, oh, an overnight success, but that's not really the case, is it? So tell us the biggest leap of faith that you've taken, and how did that pay off for you?
You know, I would say the biggest leap of faith I've taken was probably opening up my first store in November 2011. Great time. Or no, I'm sorry, November 2008. November 2007. See, now you can tell that I've gotten no sleep. Yeah. November 2007, like 2 months before the entire economy crashed. Great time to open up a store. But yeah, definitely that was my biggest leap of faith, was opening up a store. And to do so, I actually went into partnership with a former employer of mine who had racked up close to a 7-figure debt in this company. And I came in with a small amount of cash and took on all their debt to get this store. And all of my friends, especially in the finance world, were like, "You're stupid. Like, that is a really dumb idea." And I'm like, no. I'm like, if I can make this work, I've got a store in Soho, and I've skipped literally decades of work that other brands take to get to Soho. And like, once you're in Soho, you're legit. So luckily I was able to pull it off. I turned that retail location into an Italian bedding sample cell location, and had a guy standing out on the corner of Spring and Broadway with a big sign on him, sample cell. And I paid off that almost 7-figure debt in 9 months.
Oh, that's impressive.
And I turned the store into a Bobby Berk home store. I always say, I'm like, I should have just kept it as an Italian bedding sample cell location. That was a cash cow. But the plan was to build the brand.
Nice.
And a lot of times to build a brand, you've got to take 2 steps back to go 1 step forward. And that's definitely what this was. It was a risk, but luckily it paid off.
Okay, so let's talk about it, your brand. So from Missouri to Texas to Denver, and then to New York City, which is where the store was, correct?
Correct.
Yes. So did you always knew this is what you were going to do? Was this always, how did it start?
I'm literally in this business because the company I worked for went bankrupt. And that night I was like, well, let me register BobbyBerkHome.com. And I had built their e-commerce division. It was Portico. I don't know if you remember Portico
Yes.
from back in the day,
Yeah.
but I had built their e-commerce division and helped launch their spa division and all the Hyatt hotels. And so they went bankrupt. And while going through bankruptcy, the owner was like, oh, we're going to get it out of bankruptcy. I'm going to make you a partner. And so I was running PorticoHome.com from my bedroom on the Upper East Side. I was the only employee left of the company. I was trying to keep it going because I wanted to be a partner and relaunch the brand. And one day I get a letter from the court saying bankruptcy's done, intellectual property's been sold, shut it down. So I cloned the database I had built and I registered BobbyBerkHome.com. And I'm like, maybe I'll sell a sofa or two while I look for another job.
And there it is. And that's how it happened. Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
Everything happens when you're not looking for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, before that, I had just been in retail. I worked in hospitality and in retail. I dropped out of high school at 15 years old. So I was in that direction of my life. And, luckily at Portico, I had started out as before Portico, I worked for that bedding manufacturer that I ended up buying out. And I went to work for Portico, started out as a store manager, then a buyer, worked my way up to creative director. And luckily I learned a lot. I learned a lot of what to do and a lot of what not to do, that's which happens when you work for a company that goes bankrupt. But that's how I ended up in it. I kind of fell into it one night as just looking for a little way to make money while I went to look for another job. And luckily I've never had to look for another job since.
You know what? That's really great advice, and really interesting. Is I think that most people should take a business course. I mean, it should be mandatory to take a business course, but you learn trial by fire. You literally learn the business while in the business. So you had the best education possible.
I had a CFO at my company at one point that said to me, he's like, every time you're like, this is the direction we're going to go. You're like, my MBA training in the background is just like, no. He's like, but then it works. And he's like, I think one of the reasons why you've been successful, and, I'm not saying go out and do this, education is definitely very important. There's many a days I wish I had that education background, but, I don't have that professor in the back of my head going, this is how you're supposed to do it. Right. These are the ways, these are the steps, do it this way, and this is how you succeed. Right. If you have everybody doing it the same way, everybody can't succeed doing it the same way. You've got to do some things different. So don't second guess yourself. If you don't have that education, if you don't have that training, you can still do it.
That's really great advice. Well, speaking of that, what's one piece of advice that you've received that really stuck with you the whole time? Maybe that, but
I've been asked that before, and this might sound a little pompous, but I've never really had a great mentor. I've never received great advice, but I have a piece of advice that I feel is a good piece of advice because it's helped me. And that is, do not look at failures as failures. Failures are lessons. People will look at my career, my life, and be like, oh, it was such a success. Oh, no. There were way more failures than there were successes, but those failures are what taught me of okay, you got to do it a little different. B, you need to abandon that idea because it was a bad one and you need to let it go. And I think that's one of the biggest things. It's also another piece of advice. So don't let failures be failures, let failures be lessons. And also don't let a failure be the end. You know, sometimes a failure is just showing you that you need to reinvent yourself. You need to change what you're doing. You need to cut off all your hair and embrace your beautiful natural color and rebrand yourself, you know?
Oh, thank you. Are you talking about me?
Yes.
So much, yeah.
That OC Kelly, and you need to become Salona Kelly.
That's right. You're very sweet. But yeah, you're right. You're right. You just keep going and you go, okay, is this the end? It's not the end. It's just another chapter or another volume, I like to say, right? I love that.
And be willing to let something go. You know, one of the hardest things I ever had to do is let something go that I put my heart and soul in. You know, I've had many different businesses throughout the years, and some of them have been successes and some of them aren't. And the very first time I had to say to myself, all right, this new idea I had, this business I started, this wasn't a success, and I need to let it go before it takes everything else down too, was one of the hardest things. But again, it's not the end. It's just, all right, let me try something different.
I love it. Well, speaking of design, and we know you have a fantastic aesthetic that we love to watch, and it's evolved. But how has it changed over the years? And like, and do you think you've had an influence in that change? Because we've, you know, when you started off one way, and now we've watched, you know, seasons as the seasons go by on the show, and different things that you're doing. How has your own personal style, design aesthetic changed, do you think?
My personal design aesthetic has not changed. I have always been void of color. I do not like color in my home. Everything in my home is neutrals. My homes have looked, and finally I feel like my home is more on trend now with the neutrals. Before, people would walk in my home and be like, your home is very void of color. I'm like, well, that's the way I like it, but it's finally caught up to the trends. But as far as my aesthetic on the show, I don't really think it's changed because my aesthetic, it's not about me, it's about our heroes. It's about the people that are going to live in that house. The same with the clients that we deal with in my design firm. You know, it's about doing whatever you need to do to make that client happy and make that home feel like it's their home. You know, if I went in on Queer Eye and I designed every home to look like the way I liked it, when our heroes got in there, they'd be like, oh, I'm in a stranger's home, and they wouldn't feel at home. So I feel like our biggest job as a designer is to make somebody feel at home.
Well, that leads into my next question, because as you know, for how many years you've been doing design, 20 plus for me, it isn't about yourself. It shouldn't be, right? You don't come in and the cliche of everything must go, you know, that the joke. It's not that way, because you are trying to design to make someone feel alive and happy and do all the things they need to do in their home. And how is working on Queer Eye with all the fantastic heroes, you call them heroes, and I love that, with all of the heroes that you've had to work with, has it changed your approach to design? Like, what is that approach that you take? It's obviously about them. What's the process for you?
My approach hasn't changed. I think it actually has just reinforced my approach, which has always been first about function. You know, I'll figure out how to make it pretty in the end, but it first needs to function, because the functionality of a home is really what can affect someone's entire life. You know, when your bathroom doesn't function properly, when your kitchen doesn't function properly, you know, a dysfunctional kitchen can create road rage. Did you know that?
I actually believe that when you start your day off and you can't find things are not working. Well,
Yes.
great example. And for
If
most
the
people,
person cuts you off,
yes,
you're furious.
you're done. But you do this a lot, and and I know that you prepare people, and it hits home for me and any designer that's watching right now, as we're talking about, you know, obviously the kitchen and bath industry show, but the kitchen is one of the biggest remodels ever, and you have to prepare people. How do you prepare people when you're going to remodel a kitchen for them? What do you say to them? Let them know this is not a joke. This is serious. Like, get ready to make coffee in your bathroom?
No, like, move out.
Move out.
Move out. No. You know, it's actually not. Recently, I did a dear friend of mine, it's Emmy-winning actress. Won't say her name because we're getting ready to come out with a big spread on the home, but she didn't want to move out, and she didn't move out. And she was like, oh, you know, I'm going to be on set so much that it doesn't matter. I can deal with it. And when all was said and done, when the house was perfect, she's like, God, I wish I had listened to you and move out. She's like, this was awful. And I'm like, out of my way, knowing you, to make sure that it was really great compared to a lot of remodels. You know, I'm like, because I know you so well, we're friends, I know what makes you tick and I know what frustrates you. I'm like, it would have been worse if you were someone else. But, you know, if you can move out, at least during the no water phase and no gas, at least during that, do it. Otherwise, you know, you always think you can handle it. I've done it too. I've like, oh, I can live through this remodel. The house that I'm in right now, it's a 50s ranch, think Golden Girls, which we're getting ready to almost knock down and rebuild into a really cool new house. And we're like, you know what, maybe we can like live in it a little bit while we're building the guest house and then moving to the guest house. And I was like, you know what? No. That's just it's gonna create road rage.
Right. Well, the road rage, exactly. You know, I always ask the couples before starting to knock things down, like, how solid are you? Are you good? Are you a really solid couple? Because you need to really, really like each other through this process.
Because, you know, as you have talked about many times with your shows as well, we're not just designers, we're therapists.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, design therapy. Yeah, that's
sometimes marriage therapists.
Well, it is. It's important, and I think that process is really. You have to be very transparent, which I know you are. It's so fun to watch you with your clientele, you know, on the show, because the transparency is obviously king. I mean, you're getting down to the roots of who they are and what needs to happen, and that's what's so great about the show. Everyone who watches knows you must have a box of Kleenex close by. Every single episode is a tearjerker for me, and I know that is true for anybody who tunes in and watches the show, because it's so transformative and so inspiring. That's what's so amazing about the show. And I know obviously all of you are such a big part of that, but such a huge part of it is the design. So just talk about that for a second. Like, what for people who, I mean, designers watching this will know, and obviously kitchen and bath industry designers and who do this professionally know how important it is. But let's just, for people who are new to it, and designers that are new, what do they need to know about how powerful changing someone's design even a little bit is?
I mean, it really can transform lives. You know, there's a big connector between design and mental health. You know, like I was saying earlier about road rage, I say it as a joke, but it's actually really not. You know, like when you wake up in the morning and you go into your bathroom and you have a disorganized bathroom and things fall out of your medicine cabinet because you haven't organized it, or you don't have the right storage solutions in there, you get annoyed. And you walk down to the kitchen and you're annoyed, and you go to cook breakfast for your kids and you get more annoyed at them than you normally would. And then the kitchen's not functional and it just pisses you off even more. And by the time you get in your car, that person that cuts you off makes you more angry than they normally would have. And then you get to work and your, you know, idiot coworkers annoy you more than they normally would. And it all started in a disorganized bathroom. You know, and if your bathroom had been organized, if that face cream hadn't fallen off the shelf and broken, you know, your day would have been great, you know, or at least better. So, you know, it really can not just transform a life, but it can make lives so much better. And it's just the little things that you don't even think about, you know, just adding the right storage solutions, organizing the things properly, you know, using a kitchen that is functional, that makes family time happy time instead of, you know, annoyed time.
Right. No, I 100% agree with that. And there's a lot of designers who are growing their business and they're growing their brand. And they're learning the power of what they're doing for families and their clients. But what do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned when growing your brand? You know, as you go and expand your business and your brand, like what piece of advice would you give to a new designer or a designer reinventing themselves?
I think it would go back to what I said earlier of don't be afraid to fail. You know, because again, a failure is not a failure. A failure is not the end. A failure is just a lesson of how to do it bigger and better the next time. So don't be afraid of some failures, you know, embrace them, love love yourself. You know, the not the more you fail, the better you go, but you know, again, failures aren't the end. Failures are just lessons.
Yeah, that's great. It's super great advice. And everybody wants to know, of course, you know, we've gone through some challenging times and we spent a lot more time in our homes, which has really been interesting. So predictions for design trends moving forward. You know, we're seeing a new focus, a new emphasis on home. What do you think is going to be the next big thing, or some predictions for design trends coming up?
You know, I definitely think home offices are a big thing. I'm sure, it's a very in your face, predictable thing to say, but it is, a lot of people, there's massive companies out there now that are like, we don't plan on making our employees come back for years if they don't want to after this. If you want to work from home, you can. Companies are realizing they didn't need to spend all that money on these big, huge commercial spaces. So I think work from home office spaces are going to be a huge deal. Outdoor spaces, instead of going out, especially in the last year, we've all spent more time at home and we've all enjoyed those outdoor spaces more. And I think minimalism is going to have a big comeback. I think people are going to realize that surrounding themselves with clutter and chaos creates clutter and chaos in their minds.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I've found this, and you can tell me what you think, is the kitchen. We know it's the heart of the home, right? That is a given, and most people congregate there. But and I'm guilty of this. I have an office, but I find myself working in the kitchen. So are kitchens to you becoming that, ever so changing space? How do you feel about that? Putting some offices in the kitchen space?
I think that's always kind of been a trend, especially in larger suburban homes. They always kind of have that little home office area in the kitchen because there's so much space. They have nothing else to do with it. I think it just depends on where you are. In more suburban settings, I think that definitely is going to be the case. I think in smaller urban settings, it already is the case because that's the only space you have. So your kitchen, your island, your kitchen table becomes your office space. So I think it just kind of depends on where you are.
So basically more outlets.
More outlets. You can never have enough outlets.
Right. I think I've learned living in Europe that there's not enough outlets. I have a few things I need to bring to the design world in Europe when it comes to that. It's just such an interesting trend. Is there anything you can share that you're working on that we can get excited about?
Blown away. I'm going back to filming Queer Eye soon. Finally, we've been on hiatus for a year now, but we're finally going back. So that we have a couple other shows I'm working on that I can't talk about yet. And there's a lot of fun design projects. We're definitely back to being busy again with our builder clients. My design business, we do some residential clients, but we predominantly focus on working with builders. As you know, like we've talked about, working with residential clients is not just about design, but it's about therapy and everything else. So we love working with builders because
I love that.
It's not emotional at all.
It's nice. And it's funny. It's a nice break for you because we know you are obviously Queer Eye is very emotional, and we get to see you and how well you are one-on-one. We're going to do a little quick yay or nay session, and then we've got a bunch of questions from people watching, so we'll get right to those. Okay. So I'm going to just give you just a topic and you just say yay or nay because I want to know how you feel about it. Yeah?
That's good.
Let's do it. Okay. So number one, antiques or vintage pieces in your designs, yay or nay? Yay. Awesome. Love that. Gray or beige?
Neither.
Which one?
Neither. I'm so sick of both.
They're not. No, there's no grayish. I thought, what's our next neutral? What's our new neutral?
I'm really just loving white.
I know. Yeah. Same.
I'm so sick of gray walls. And before the gray, it was in the 90s, it was the cream and just, yeah.
White, sweet white. So murals, how do you feel about murals?
Nay.
Nay, that's a nay. Okay, so Zoom etiquette. Should we match the room? We're always on Zoom. How do you feel about the backdrops and stuff like that? I stay with the distracting. Do I match the room?
Backgrounds?
Yeah.
I think that's fine. I think it's fine to not want to bring people into your home. I've had a hard time with that, honestly, because my home with my career now was my last slice of privacy left in the world.
Right.
And I've had to give that up. So I'm fine with virtual backgrounds. But if you're going to use them, make sure you do the light properly.
Yeah.
Well, no, a lot of times people will do like a virtual background and it's like this pretty space and there's a window over there, but then they have their lamp on this side. I'm like, put your lamp on the side that the light's coming in on the virtual background and it'll make it look more real.
Oh my gosh, I love that. How to make your virtual background look more real. That's a whole nother session. Okay, we're going to get to our first question. We've got a ton of them. So have you ever been stumped by a design solution on Queer Eye?
I wouldn't say stumped. I've been stumped of how I was going to pay for it. Especially in the beginning. Our budget's the same today as it was. Actually, my budget's the same as Tom Felicia's was in the original Queer Eye.
Wow. So you are even more creative. Don't you find the budget to
I
make
wouldn't say I'm more creative than Tom.
No. But it makes you more creative to have a budget, doesn't it?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, people assume my budget is 6 figures, and I'm like, it is nowhere near that. So yeah, not stumped, just stumped of how am I going to do this with the money that I have available.
Okay, interesting. Here's the next question. How long do most projects take that are shown on television? I have clients always asking about the time frame because they can only, talk about the shows that do it that seem like it's within a day, but literally how long? Yeah, how long does it really take?
If a show tries to make you seem like they do it in a day, that is lies from the pits of hell. But Queer Eye, I really do get the house on Tuesday afternoon, and I have it back Friday. There have been a few episodes where I've had longer time, like the episode where our hero Wesley, who uses a chair, I needed to gut the house and make it as ADA compliant as possible. I had 2 weeks for that, just because it was we did the whole house. But normally I get the house on Tuesday, I have it back Friday. So all of the construction that happens really does happen from Tuesday to Friday. We move everything out Friday or Tuesday afternoon. We start tearing stuff out. There is, of course, planning, but not much. I mean, some of the episodes, the planning is days before. Some of it's a couple weeks before. But the actual construction is from Tuesday to Friday. What designers can tell their clients, though, from my mouth, is that construction cost to do it that quickly is about 15 times more expensive than it is to do it on a normal time schedule. So my 95% of my budget goes to construction, and it's really usually not that much construction. It's just painting and this and that, Luckily, I have amazing trade-out partners where I get my furniture, but my budget goes towards construction. So yes, you can get your home done that quickly if you're willing to pay about 15 times more for it.
Wow. You know what? People don't realize that though, but that's a great lesson because you're right. I mean, you've seen projects that have to be done super fast, and that's great. That's a great little tidbit. If you're willing to pay for it, you can get it done. And you all hands on deck, right?
There's a lot of shows I'll see out there that are design renovation shows that I watch, and I'm like, BS.
You did not do that. There's 100 people working on it, right?
Yeah, I will not say who, but I'm like, BS.
Okay, next question.
Stop setting unrealistic expectations for the design industry.
Yeah, you know what? It does hurt us because when you show up to a client's house and they expect it to be done that fast, and you break the news that I'm sorry, all this stuff is custom and it's going to take 10 weeks.
Honestly,
Sorry.
I get that expectation now. You haven't seen it yet because you've been gone, but down the street from our house now, I'm renovating this big Spanish home, turning it into our corporate offices. And I even hired my contractor that I use on a lot of shows, and I'm like, we'll knock this out in a month. We're going on a year and 3 months now, I mean, a lot of it was because of COVID, it really threw a wrench in our time schedule, but even I had unrealistic.
You're not immune, and you know it, right?
I'm used to just knocking it out so quickly, but I also wasn't willing to pay that much more to get it done quickly either.
I love it. So personally, which do you like to remodel more, a kitchen or a bath, and why?
I would say a kitchen, just because there's, I think, more that goes into it. I like a lot of straight vertical lines. I'm a Virgo, you get a lot of that in kitchens. Kitchens.
I love that. Okay, so next question. It says, what is the most inspiring and least inspiring part of the design process?
The most inspiring is figuring out how to make the home function for the people and how it's going to help enrich their lives. And the least inspiring part is budget.
Yeah.
The least inspiring part is the budget telling you, oh, you don't get to do the inspiring part.
Yeah. I was just going to say, isn't that the worst part, trying to get the reality into the client about the budget? With the show, how is it different? So the expectations are different. How does that really work?
I mean, in the show, there is no budget for our heroes. They have no idea about the behind the scenes workings of budgets and everything. In real life, it's the client's always like, oh yeah, so I want to do this entire remodel with furniture and everything for $250,000, and you're like, oh well, your expectations are unrealistic. Like, you're not even going to be able to furnish the house with the taste level that you want for that. So bring your expectations down, or bring your taste level down and we can make it happen. But yeah, you do
How,
it.
and are you enjoying working around the country and seeing different parts?
Yeah.
You just rather be home, right? I know.
I would, yeah. I mean, I was gone for the last month. I'll be home for a month, then I'll be gone for another 3 months.
Yeah, it's hard. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. Yeah, it always looks more glamorous than it is. And I know your husband well, and I know he misses you greatly. But I think it's very, we appreciate all of the hard work and travel that you put in because the show is so wonderful. And I have a question about that, where somebody says, "I love your work on Queer Eye," of course, all the versions. When will the upcoming season episodes be released? So when's the new season? Everybody's waiting.
I mean, we start filming probably around April. It takes about 3 or 4 months for us to film. And then it takes about 8 months for that footage to be turned into a show. Because the amazing thing about Netflix, as you know, they dub our show and mini shows into, God, I think like 10 different languages now. So it's not just about how long it takes us to film it. It's about waiting for the edit to be perfect. And then it has to be sent out to individual voiceover departments to have the dubbing done, which takes months as well. So, I mean, I don't know, but I would say no sooner than the very end of this year, probably early next year.
I'm gonna
But
when
Blown
I go.
Away, the Blown
Yeah.
Away holiday special will be out this fall, so you'll get that.
Okay, good, because we're not going to miss you on Netflix. You're becoming a staple that we love to watch, and I love sending you text messages as I'm watching the episodes because I love them so much. But when I go back to Spain, I'll film the dubbing so you can see how you sound over there.
I often watch them in other languages. I think it's hilarious. I think watching us in Italian is quite. You should do it. We sound a little more gayer than we normally do.
Oh, that's the best. Oh, yeah, another question came in. So what is your favorite cabinet color? This person says mine is green right now. What's your favorite cabinet color?
It's funny you should say green because I do love green. I mean, my favorite is black. I do a lot of black in my home. I think it's very sexy and anchors things. But green, we follow our Instagram statistics very closely, and anytime we post a green kitchen, it outperforms every other design post by over 100%.
Wow, that's interesting. So with the I'm always interested in the psychology behind that. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. And it's not just green kitchens either. If we post a living room with a green chair in it, it does better. There's something about green right now that people are really gravitating towards.
You know what? This is maybe it's nature, Bobby.
Possibly.
Maybe, right? Maybe it's reflecting nature.
Money or, depending on what country. I guess it's just America that it's green.
But I love that. Here's another little comment and question. Says, my dream has always been to open up my own little home decor boutique. With so many businesses turning to online and virtual, what advantages and disadvantages do you see in owning a physical location?
That's a tough one. Because I started out online, and then I added brick and mortar, and at one point I had 4 stores. It depends on what you're looking to get out of it, honestly. Like a lot of people like having the brick and mortar store because they get to interact with people, and they get to, they get to touch things and feel things, and they get to help their customers experience that. And if that's what you're looking for out of your business, then I would say go for brick and mortar. If you're solely just doing it, I don't know. That's a hard one. There's pros and cons business wise. I would say start small if you're going to do brick and mortar. Don't try to expand too quickly. Do it organically. Do it naturally. Online though is hard just because there's so many out there now. When I started my online business, we were one of the #1 online retailers for modern furniture out there, but we were one of the only ones. There was Velocity Art and Design out of Seattle, if you guys remember them, and then Design Public, and it was just us 3. There was no Wayfair, there was no Amazon. Amazon was just still selling books. So yeah, I think it is almost easier these days to have a really great little brick and mortar concept that really can add something to the neighborhood, and people find it to be a great design source for gifts and unique things. I think that's almost easier these days than trying to start an online store, because there's just so many online stores. There's also only so much product out there that is drop shippable and in a good way. There are a lot of brands out there that are unique that will drop ship, but they aren't really set up for it. So it causes more headaches than it's worth.
Yeah,
And when
that's
you
interesting.
have suppliers that are not drop shipping properly or causing customer service issues, at the end of the day, all that flack just comes back on you. It doesn't come back on them. So a brick and mortar store is a little bit easier to control the brand, I would say. So that's a pro. Online is because you're probably not going to, especially in the beginning, buy all that inventory to ship yourself. You're going to drop ship.
Yeah.
So online is more out of your control. You
Very
rely
good
on
advice.
vendors, you rely on shipping companies, all of which the blowback comes back to you. The person that gets that ripped sofa from a forklift, they're not writing a bad Yelp review about, whatever transport company. They're writing it about your store. So yeah, I think the biggest pro of a brick and mortar these days is you can really kind of set yourself apart in the neighborhood and you can control every aspect of it. Online is you have to rely on a lot of other parties and it's harder to control.
Great advice. I really, seriously, that's great advice. And I think focusing maybe on the design trade, local design trade is a nice way to get your business ramped up too, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so next question. What has been your favorite hero space transformation?
Asking which my kid is my favorite.
Yeah.
I would have to go along with ones that are more my personal design aesthetic. So Wesley was more my design aesthetic. Neil from season 1, AJ from season 1. Yeah, I would say those 3 were probably top because it would remind me of my own home.
I love that. It's been fun to watch and because I know your own personal style, so I can tell, when you feel extra close to something, right? When you've done the transformation and you watch it, and now I'm sure most people now know you, which is such an odd thing, How does it feel to have so many people know who you are? I mean, we've always known you in the design industry. You've always been a darling and obviously super popular amongst our core group, but being able to not walk down the street anymore and not have people know who you are, has it been fun?
Yeah. Again, just like brick and mortar and online has its pros, has its cons.
Yeah.
One of the things about our show is you do know so much about us. You know about my family and my past and my friends, and so people really feel like we're friends. And we'll be sitting at dinner at a restaurant, obviously not anytime recently. And somebody will be like, oh my God, hey, and they'll sit down at the table and just start chatting. And then a few minutes into it go, oh my God, this is weird. I'm so sorry. You don't know me. And I'm like, no. But, people feel like they know me and I know them. So it's interesting because it's not like a Brad Pitt, not to compare myself to Brad Pitt, but we went to the same high school, so it's the first name that comes to mind. But you don't know Brad. You know who he is, but you wouldn't feel when he was walking down the street to run up to him and just like start having a conversation with him. You're like, oh, that's Brad Pitt. That's really cool. But again, with us, and this is a beautiful thing as well, people feel like they really know us and that we're friends. And so we get to have a lot of amazing conversations with people that we never thought we would.
You know what? I think just the fact that you've inspired so many people, all of you, and help people face challenges is enough, right? Yeah. Oh, okay. One more question here. So, what's been the most fun space that you've designed?
The most fun space, in general, or Queer Eye?
Queer Eye, probably.
The most fun space. Oh, they all blend together at this point.
I'm sure.
Done like 70. Oh, actually, oh my God, I can't remember her name. But it was the season in Japan, and it was I feel so bad, I can't remember her name.
No,
right
it's
now.
Okay.
But we designed the bedroom that she shared with her sister, and I based the design off, and I can't remember the name of the movie now either.
I can't either, but I remember it. It was the high, low, and
the pink, and yeah.
Yes.
If you watch Queer Eye, you know which one I'm talking about. But it was fun because the spaces in Japan were so much smaller than we're used to dealing with. So, and a lot of them in Japan, like we couldn't, because they were rentals, and in Japan you can't hang anything on the wall.
Oh wow.
You can't paint the wall. You can't do anything to a rental space, nothing. So we had to find creative ways to build furniture up within it to create an apartment within the 4 walls of the apartment to make it unique. And that was one of those spaces, even though they owned their home in that one, but we had to really build out that space to utilize the real estate from top to bottom, not just side to side. So yeah, I think that one was my favorite.
Wow. And if you haven't watched that season, it was one of my favorite seasons. I really, really, really enjoyed that. It was just not only learning about the people, of course, that's always fun, but the culture. So it was a great mix of culture in that. So
it was nice. It was nice to kind of mix it up for us because we had been in Georgia and then we had been in Missouri, and not that it's exactly the same, but it's middle America. So it was really cool to go to a place that I didn't have any of my normal design resources, like nothing. It was with doing Queer Eye from day one. I just went from my design firm to doing it mobily for Queer Eye. I still used all of my same resources. I knew all of my same contacts that I could call up and be like, I need this overnight. It was just the same thing I was doing, just on a much quicker time frame. But in Japan, there was none of that. Didn't speak the language, obviously. There was none of my contacts at any brands that I knew. So it was all very exciting because it was like my first day at work.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So then I really encourage people to watch the season again, to now that you know the backstory. And another question here. Hi, Kelli and Bobby. What are some of your favorite features and benefits of home automation that you bring to your design projects?
I love as much home automation as possible. I'm definitely of that generation where, while I was away in Canada, I had new automatic shades installed in this house, even though it sounds a little wasteful, but even though we're tearing this house down in 6 months to a year, I'm like, I just couldn't have manual shades in my bedroom. I needed them to go up to wake me up. Granted, we will recycle the motors and put them in the new windows that we're building. But yeah, to me, home automation is very important. I think it can really enhance our lives.
Right. Anything that I can control from my phone prior to getting there, like the temperature, control for. I know they're a sponsor, but I also have happened to put them into many projects and really, really, really love them. And my clients really love them. There's a fear at first, depending on the age of the client, of course, about automation. But once their lives get so used to it, because we get used to it, our cars have computers, our refrigerators have computers. So it's not as foreign anymore. And I think people really embrace it. What do you think?
I think so as well. Everything that can be automated in my home is.
Right. So we have one last question.
It's to everything.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Not to step on you there, but yeah, absolutely. Like the automation part of it is second nature to us. And as our younger generation designers well know, they're putting it into everything, right? So one more question before we wrap up. We could do this all darn day. We'd bring in some lunch and have a glass of wine or a cocktail, and we could just sit here all day. So I'm sure everybody would love that. But we have one question, and that is the last one for you: is what inspires you the most?
I would say the thing that inspires me the most is the people I get to work with. How things will affect their lives, their passions, their loves. That's what inspires me the most. And I think that's what makes, not to call myself a good designer, but I think that's what makes a good designer, is being inspired by your client. Your client should obviously be inspired by you. There's a reason why they hired you, but you need to find your inspiration from your client. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough. I need for you to quickly do a shout out to my colleagues in the UK. So say hi to Gail from the UK. Yeah, she loves you.
UK.
She absolutely loves you. Okay, so that's it. We're out of time, unfortunately. A great Friday afternoon, a great way to wrap up KBIS. Thank you again, Bobby. Thank you to Control4 again for sponsoring today's discussion. The virtual all ends this afternoon, and what a ride it has been. I can't wait to see you in person again. And we hope everyone has enjoyed this show as much as all of the virtual show. And again, we gotta do this in person and be back on that KBIS NeXTStage in real life. Bobby, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you, love. Got to jump on a call with your girl Liza now.
Yeah.
Oh, and we're done.
And we're done.